Hello, welcome. Give us just a quick second. We're going to get started here momentarily, um, giving a few more attendees time to get checked in. So give us just one moment and we'll be right with you. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Ty Adams. Welcome to Marketplace 2020. Thank you for joining us for today's session, Partnering with Education for Mutually Beneficial Outcome. Please feel free to engage throughout by asking questions and using the Q&A window, which is below. Without further delay, I'm excited to introduce our Big Ben sponsor, Texas Mutual.
In response to the pandemic, Texas Mutual will distribute $330 million in dividends to eligible policyholders 2 months ahead of schedule. We're also sending $2 million to nonprofits on the front lines of the COVID-19 effort. Better days are coming, but in the meantime, we'll be on the job helping Texas businesses. To learn how dividends are supporting employers in this time of need, go to texasmutual.com/dividends.
Wow, thank you so much, Texas Mutual. Have to give them a shout out, an additional shout out by just saying thank you. We just love them. Awesome sponsors with the association. And I would also like to go and have Miss Yvonne Loya, our awesome Director of Education, to introduce the amazing speaker we have coming for this particular session. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Yvonne.
Hi everyone, I'm Yvonne Loya Sines, Director of Education and Texas ProStart Coordinator of the Texas Restaurant Association Education Foundation, here to introduce this session today for TRA Marketplace 2020. At the TRA Education Foundation, our goal is to encourage careers and workforce development in the restaurant industry. As the state coordinator of the ProStart program, we work with educators around Texas to provide curriculum and resources that support culinary and restaurant management training for students in high school and educators as well. Early in the pandemic, TRAEF partnered with the Scoffier School of Culinary Arts to help train teachers in virtual teaching. With that, I'm excited that Debbie Whelan from TEA has joined us for this valuable conversation, and I'm super excited to introduce her today. Debbie Whelan is the Texas Assistant Director of Career and Technical Education at the Texas Education Agency and provides support to the education and training, hospitality and tourism, and human services career clusters in high schools. Prior to her employment with TEA, Debbie was a family and consumer sciences teacher in Texas. She taught courses in education and training, human services, hospitality and tourism, and career development. Before entering the education field, Debbie was in retail, store management, and human resources with H-E-B Grocery Company. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to Debbie. Debbie, take it away.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm excited to be a part of the Texas Marketplace and the Food Expo and presenting hopefully some great ideas for you all to implement in your workplace. So I won't go into my introduction since Yvonne already did that, but I would like to spend some time at the beginning of my presentation giving you a little bit of background of career and technical education and how it's implemented in the various school districts. So I am going to share my screen with you all, and I think we should be good. Yvonne, if you'd give me a thumbs up once you see it. Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm going to go on to the next screen, and before I actually get into my presentation, I want to mention a topic that I know is on everybody's mind right now. We're facing a lot of uncertain and difficult situations and decisions as a result of COVID, and I don't want to make light of that. I want to make sure to mention that many of the decisions that we're making regarding education have a very significant impact on our school districts, our educators, school staff, and especially on the workforce in Texas. Many of our educational decisions impact the workforce. So as the TEA continues to monitor the coronavirus outbreak, we have a place on our website where we are continuously posting important updates and resources and guidance that we're giving to our school districts, to our parents. Many of you that might be listening in today may also be parents and concerned about what's happening in your children's school district. So we recognize the impacts that COVID has had on your industry, the hospitality industry in general, but specifically the culinary arts industry, and how it has affected the businesses that many of you represent. So as the restaurant industry begins to rebound, we're seeing many innovative solutions and creative opportunities that are being implemented across the state. And I want to take some time to talk about those in my presentation today. So this is what I hope to share with you all today. I want to make sure to share with you the Texas Education Agency strategic priorities and where we want to go with education. I also want to spend some time talking about what career and technical education is so that you understand the vocabulary that I'm using and what I'm talking about. Then I want to talk specifically about hospitality and tourism programs of study. The career cluster hospitality and tourism encompasses lodging and restaurants and attractions. So I'll talk a little bit more about that and how that affects education. And then I want to talk a little bit about work-based learning and share with you the ways that you can be innovative in your partnering with education and ways that you can benefit from that partnership as well as the students benefiting from the partnership. Okay. So let me start out by sharing the TEA strategic priorities. You'll see them right here. And if you'll take a look where the blue arrow is, you'll see the strategic priority in the purple box. That's our third strategic priority as an agency. And that priority is important because it really focuses on providing students with the skills to be successful in the occupations that they're interested in. So our priority is that we connect high school to career and college. And you'll notice that there's an emphasis on career and preparing students for occupations. But what excites us about that strategic priority is that in order for the TEA to be successful, career and technical education has to be a part of the plan in connecting high school to career and college. And that's pretty exciting. There's a big focus on preparing students for occupations. I like to share this slide when I'm presenting to our industry stakeholders because this communicates the goal of the division that CTE is part of, which is called the College, Career, and Military Preparation Division. And what this slide shows you is that the TEA wishes to align Texas's educational goals with its diverse industry needs and opportunities. And in order to do this, we have to braid what industry and education are both doing in order to deliver a skilled talent pool to our industry partners and to support the continued job growth in our state's vast economy. So ultimately, what we are doing in education is providing that skilled talent pool that so many of you need. And in order to provide the kind of talent pool that you need and desire, we really have to partner with industry to make that happen. So I wanted to take a little bit of time to break down what is career and technical education. So if you look over to the left side of the slide, you'll see that career and technical education consists of about 300 courses in 15 different career clusters. And those courses are preparing students for success after high school. That success might be the student immediately entering into an occupation. It might mean that the student pursues some additional occupational training, or it might be that a student has to attend college and earn a post-secondary educational credential. So if you look in the center section of the slide, you'll see that in the hospitality and tourism career cluster, we have 3 programs of study. And I have them listed in the far right-hand side of the slide. The 3 programs of study that we offer our school districts in the state of Texas are Culinary Arts, Lodging and Resort Management, and then the final one is Travel, Tourism, and Attractions. So all of our courses are arranged in such a way that a student is being prepared for one of these 3 areas if they're in the hospitality and tourism career cluster. Okay, what you see on this slide is an example from our program of study framework document. So I want to share with you that programs of study, so that you understand when I use that terminology, are course sequences that prepare students with the knowledge and skills necessary for them to be successful in their chosen career. So the sequences embed relevant real-world experiences and culminate in a post-secondary credential whenever possible. So for example, in Culinary Arts, we have the Serve Safe credential as part of that program of study. So the Career and Technical Education team at the Texas Education Agency conducted a labor market analysis to initially determine the occupations in the state that were high wage and in demand. Programs of study were developed to prepare students for success in those high wage and in demand occupations. So we want to prepare kids for the occupations that exist within our state, occupations that will provide them a living wage. So after we did our labor market analysis, we were left with a list of 55 programs of study across all of the career clusters. We asked industry advisory councils to contribute to that work that was being done, and this work was happening over the last couple of years. So one of the ways that industry contributed was by validating the skills and instruction that we included in the courses, by identifying the gaps that existed, areas where we maybe didn't have enough instruction for the occupations that existed. So some of the industry shared with us that some of those gaps in the hospitality and tourism coursework included 4 courses that we really just did not have enough instruction in. And so over the last year, we worked on developing courses to address those skills gaps that the industry partners highlighted for us. So those, we developed 3 of the 4 courses over the last year. The courses we developed were Foundations of Restaurant Management, Introduction to Event and Meeting Planning, and then a Tourism Marketing Concepts and Application course. So those are courses that address some of the areas that where there was a gap between the instruction we were providing and the skills that were necessary in order for a student to be successful in that industry. So we developed for every one of our 55 programs of study a document that we call a program of study framework document. And so this is the top part of that document. I wanted to share this with you so that you would have a better understanding of what the instruction looks like. So I mentioned earlier, we have 3 programs of study in the hospitality and tourism career cluster. The first one I'm going to talk about is Culinary Arts, probably the most closely related program of study to the work that many of you do. If you look over on the right side of the slide, I'm going to use my pointer here to show you. On this right side of the slide over here, you'll see a listing of the courses that are available for school districts to offer in the state of Texas. Introduction to Culinary Arts, basically it's very broad and foundational and introduces the student to the occupations and careers that exist in the industry. Principles of Hospitality and Tourism is even more broad, and this would be a course that maybe would be a good course for a student who's not really sure if they're interested in the culinary arts piece of it or the hospitality or tourism piece of it. They get exposure to all of those. So very broad and general, foundational level courses. And then we get a little bit more specific and a little bit more high level instruction related to the specific program of study. So second level courses might be Culinary Arts or Foundations of Restaurant Management. We would follow up with a more advanced Culinary Arts course, and then the level 4 course or the culminating course for a student might be a course like Food Science, Practicum in Culinary Arts, or Practicum in Entrepreneurship, or Career Prep 1. So what you see is that our programs of study start with very broad foundational instruction, and it becomes more specific and more directed toward the occupations within that program of study. So at the bottom of the document, you see information that looks like this, and I wanted to walk you through this information as well to help you understand the resources that our students and our teachers and parents get to see. So on this side of the document, there's a focus on post-secondary training or education. So if I'm interested in culinary arts, what should I do after high school or maybe even during high school? So right here we have listed all of the industry certifications that are included on our TEA list of certifications. We have 244 certifications that school districts can offer students that count toward the accountability system for the school district. So if students earn these certifications, it's like a point for the school district in their grade that they receive at the end of the year. We have a suggested list of certifications for a student to pursue perhaps after high school, and then if they're going to pursue post-secondary education, just some opportunities that they may want to consider for post-secondary education. Over on this section of the document, you're going to see the occupations that we determined were the in-demand and high-wage occupations that really informed this program of studies. So you'll see we have food and beverage managers, chef and head cooks, and food science technicians as the occupations for culinary arts. We did look at 3 criteria when we identified the occupations that inform the programs of study. We looked at a median wage of at least $33,359. So all of these occupations exceed that. We looked at occupations that had at least 500 openings, but as we grouped these 3 together, then we averaged the 500 openings. But you'll see food and beverage managers and chef and head cooks had lots of opportunity in the state of Texas. And then we looked at occupations that met a growth percent of at least 17%. And we looked at labor market information from the last 4 years. So it's going to be interesting to see what the labor market information is going to look like as we start to recover from this COVID situation. But the important thing to consider in all of this information that you're looking at is that the focus was based on labor market information to drive the programs that we were offering in our schools. And I think that's a really important aspect to remember, that we are trying to prepare our students for the occupations that exist within our state. Down below, you'll see a description of the Culinary Arts Program of Study and a description of the Hospitality and Tourism Career Cluster. In this box right here, you're going to see some suggested exploration activities for students. A lot of the activities listed here are career and technical student organizations. Those are the extracurricular activities that a student might participate in related to the program of study that they're interested in. And then you might also see some work-based learning activities. So some things that we thought would be a good idea for a student to participate in order to help prepare them. Now, it's also important to mention, I'm going to go back to this slide here, that every school district will not offer all of these courses. Typically, a school district is going to offer 4 courses, and a student, maybe a couple more than 4, but typically 4 courses, and then a student will select the courses that fit into their schedule. So a school district most likely is not going to offer every course you see on this list. Likewise, these opportunities for exploration and work-based learning are going to be different from school district to school district. And so this document might change a little bit from school district to school district. This is the second program of study within the Hospitality and Tourism Career Cluster. This program of study is the Lodging and Resort Management Program of Study. Really focuses on the lodging industry. You'll see that same Principles of Hospitality and Tourism course as a foundational course here. And then the courses get more directed toward the lodging industry. So this includes hotel management, travel and tourism management. Hospitality services is a course where students are actually in the workplace at a hotel or lodging property and getting experience either job shadowing or as an intern. This introduction to event and meeting planning was one of the courses that our industry stakeholders told us we just didn't cover enough instruction to help someone be successful in that occupation. So we developed a new course, and it's actually scheduled to be implemented this school year. I'm not sure yet how many school districts will be offering this course, but it is a course that's available for them to offer this year. In the future, we'll be working on this course right here, Practicum in Event and Meeting Planning, where we list the curriculum standards or what we expect a student to get in terms of instruction related to the industry. This is more of a work-based learning course, but we'll be working on developing that this year. Again, I want to take you to the bottom of the document and show you that these are the certifications that we thought aligned well with the Lodging and Resort Management Program of Study. These are some additional certificates or licensures that a student might want to pursue after they've graduated from high school. And then if they're going to pursue post-secondary education, attend a university or a community college, here are some suggestions of what they might major in. This is a very unique program of study in that the labor market data for hospitality and tourism sometimes is not as accurate as we wish it would be. I know that there is someone in the industry that's been working with the ONET folks and trying to make sure that we get the data more accurate. So if you look up here, you'll see that the first occupation we have aligned with this program of study is general and operations managers. And that includes general managers for any kind of entity. It doesn't specifically include lodging general managers. So you'll see the salary, the median wage there is $107. We also included lodging managers, which we feel that this salary might not be completely accurate based on the data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, because they group the surveys that they receive into categories that maybe don't dig deep enough to show us exactly what's happening in the lodging industry. We included administrative and service managers and meeting, convention, and event planners in that. So we met our criteria by looking at the 35,339, at least 500 openings, and then 17% growth. Again, you'll see the description of this program of study and the description of the career cluster, the same one that you saw on the previous slide. And this is the third program of study for the hospitality and tourism career cluster. We have travel, tourism, and attractions. Again, you're going to see that broad foundational course that exposes students to all three programs of study. We have a travel and tourism management course. We have an entrepreneurship course, a sports and entertainment marketing course that could be selected as a second level course. We also offer a global business course for our school districts to select from. And then we developed this course over the last year called Tourism Marketing Concepts and Applications. So that's an additional course that will be implemented this school year. And then we have our level 4 courses, which are primarily our work-based learning courses. Then on the bottom of this document, we have the certifications that are available for a student to earn as part of their high school schedule. We have certificates and licensures that maybe a student would pursue after high school, and then suggestions for college majors if a student is going to pursue post-secondary education. The occupations that inform this program of study are advertising and promotions managers, fundraisers, which is kind of an unusual occupation to think of, but it was one of the occupations that was a strong foundational occupation for this program of study. Then market research analyst and marketing specialist and marketing managers. Then we have a short description of the travel, tourism, and attractions program of study down below. So I wanted to share with you our 3 programs of study in a little bit more detail so that you had an understanding of what it is that we provide for our students. I do have a link I'm going to copy right now and put into the chat box. This link is a link, let's see, I don't know if I can. I may have to figure out how to do this in just a few minutes. I see the Q&A box, but I'm not able to put a link in. So I do have a link to these documents on the TEA website in case you're interested in taking a look at these documents. But I'll move on. Okay. So as I talk about work-based learning, I wanted to make sure that you all had the same definition or frame of reference when you hear the term work-based learning. And so I wanted to share this slide with you that defines work-based learning as a continuum of intentional activities and experiences designed to expand the boundaries of the classroom and prepare students for future career opportunities. So activities and experiences can begin as early as pre-kindergarten and continue through post-secondary education, but it's extending the classroom boundaries outside of the classroom where the student is actually getting an opportunity to see what the workplace is like in a field or occupation that they're interested in. So some of the work-based learning opportunities provide things for students like applying academic and technical skills learned in the classroom in a realistic setting. So they're going to learn culinary arts, food preparation in the classroom, but then we want them to know it's not always going to be quiet when you're in that industry. What is it really like? Is it, you know, big sense of urgency and lots of opinions about what the food should be looking like and tasting like? So they need to understand both sides of the academic and technical skills that they're learning. We want the work-based learning to engage them with business and industry professionals. We want it to be something that the students are interacting with those professionals and getting a feel for what that professional acts like, looks like, talks like, so that they know what skills they need to be developing. We're hoping that our work-based learning provides exploration and experience for potential career options, gives them opportunities to maybe understand what is the interview process like if I want to become a chef in a restaurant. Where should I start? What should my career progression look like? And then we want our students to develop and practice some essential employability skills. So the work-based learning helps us with that. We hear a lot from our industry partners that they want their future pipeline to be filled with people who have initiative and have a servant mentality, people who can provide exceptional customer service. And so we feel like the best way for our students to learn some of that is through some of the work-based learning experiences that they might have while they're still in high school. So we have what we call a work-based learning continuum. I'm not going to the next slide here. Okay, let's see. My slide is a little bit, let's go. I'm stuck on this slide, but I don't have anything more to say on this one. So give me just 1 second to go. There we go. Our work-based learning continuum talks about work-based learning and what happens starting as early as pre-kindergarten And how can we begin to teach our students about occupations that early? So you'll see the first phase that begins in kindergarten is over here, pre-K through elementary, is focused on awareness of industries and careers. So young learners need to be introduced to the concept of work. What are they, how are they going to put into practice what they're learning in school into a career that they may be interested in or may enjoy. You'll see the second phase is the middle school phase. It's focused on exploration of industries and careers that are located in the community where the student lives and that students may be interested in and have an aptitude for. So middle school years really are typically when this kind of exploration begins. And then the third phase, which is the green phase, is more immersive and usually begins in the high school years. What we think should be happening then is students in career preparation phase can start to spend longer periods of time working alongside professionals to gain more real work experience related to their programs of study. And then the fourth phase is the phase that typically occurs during post-secondary years, so after high school. And it can be highly specialized training in a specific career field. With culinary arts, much of that can happen during the high school years, but there are some things that will happen in those post-secondary years. So you'll notice that educator externships are referenced on the continuum. You'll see them down at the bottom right here. And we'll talk more about externships and a little bit later in the session. But those externships are opportunities that can help teachers, counselors, and administrators understand the application of the education that the students are receiving, that application to an occupation or a career. So we're going to take a little bit more of a deep look at some of these phases on the work-based learning continuum. So as you'll see here, for those elementary, pre-K elementary, you'll see some sample activities and experiences related to industry and career awareness. You'll also notice that some of the activities can be done in the school environment and some activities can be done away from school. So some in-school activities might include career day events, career play centers, guest speakers, interest surveys, lunch and learns, and strength finders. And I'm going to share just a brief story with you. You noticed in my intro that Yvonne mentioned I had worked for HEB prior to becoming an educator. And I have this just vivid memory of being in elementary school and visiting the HEB distribution center as a field trip when I was in elementary school. I'm not saying that's why I ended up working for HEB, but I feel like it had something to do with my perception of what a great company it was. So we visited the milk plant and they gave us a little box of chocolate milk. We visited the bakery and we got something that had been produced in the bakery. So it was just something that happened every single year we went to their distribution center and learned about what people that worked for HEB did for a living. So there's lots of things that can happen to help young people see the opportunities that might exist for them. Out of school activities might include college visits or field trips, even as early as elementary. Sharing that kind of information with students is important. This slide is the slide that talks about middle school, and you'll see we talked about that's really when the exploration happens. And so there are aptitude assessments, and there's several different kinds of guided research projects, interest surveys that the students are doing to evaluate their interest and their skills, and align those evaluations with the skills and interests that are required for someone to be successful in an occupation. And you'll see the out-of-school activities might include the Explorer Club, interviewing actual professionals in the industry, job shadowing, supervised agricultural experiences, and then worksite tours. This would be the high school part of the continuum. And this is where the student is actually getting some real hands-on opportunities to explore the occupations that they're interested in. So they might be earning a credential or a license. So for culinary arts, the credential is most typically serve safe. For lodging and resort management, we have some credentials that a student can begin to learn while they're gaining their instruction in the lodging and resort management area. We look for simulated workplace programs. So many of our high schools in the state of Texas have commercial kitchens where the students are actually learning how to use the equipment that they would be using if they worked in a restaurant. We have some simulated workplace environments related to the lodging industry where the student is checking guests in and out in a simulated atmosphere. So it's opportunities for the students to practice the skills they'll be using. And then we have a really high focus on out-of-school activities. We call them internships, clinical rotations. They're all kind of the same thing, but it's an opportunity for the student to get out into the workplace. So one of the things that we have learned is when a student has an interest in an occupation and they actually get into that occupation environment, they're more likely to persist and complete high school and complete the training required for them to be successful in the occupation once they've spent some time in that environment. So it's super important for them to have that opportunity. We also have career and technical student organization competitions. So some that are specifically related to hospitality and tourism, I'm going to cover in just a few minutes so that you'll have some, you're just going to be blown away. You're going to say, I never realized there was so much instruction and opportunity for students to learn. And then there's apprenticeships that might be opportunities for students in this high school level. All right, so I'm going to talk briefly for the next portion of my presentation about these 8 opportunities that I think are really great opportunities for industry to partner with education. So the first one, I'll talk in detail about each one of those, but the first is to provide internship learning opportunities. And it's important for me to mention that those internship opportunities can be paid or unpaid. So in this time when it's really difficult for this industry to operate in a profitable state, it's okay to have students that are unpaid interns doing work for you if that work is helping them learn about the industry and the environment that they would work in. The second suggestion here is to serve as a guest speaker in a classroom. And as we begin the school year, most of our classrooms, or many of our classrooms, are virtual classrooms. And so that makes becoming a guest speaker even easier, because you don't have to leave your place of work. You can actually hop on a Zoom and speak to a whole group of culinary students or hospitality students that think they might be interested in a career in this industry. Providing workplace case studies to students is another way that you can partner with the school district, and I will dig a little bit deeper into that on the next slide. So that you have some ideas of what I'm talking about. The next one is serving on an industry advisory committee. Most school districts are doing things related to education and making decisions related to education with the input of industry stakeholders, because you all know what it is that that student needs to be able to do by the time they graduate from high school. So your input is extremely important. I mentioned that some of our high schools have commercial kitchens. Industry stakeholders often tour those culinary kitchens, and they let us know if the equipment that's being used is up-to-date equipment. We don't want to be training our students on equipment that's no longer used in industry. We'll go on to the next one, providing input on course development. So I mentioned we just developed 3 new courses this past year. We have 2 more that we're working on developing, practicum in event and meeting planning and a practicum in entrepreneurship, which would be really closely aligned with the restaurant industry. So we'll be looking for individuals from industry to help us with the development of those courses. We look for our industry partners to help us validate the skills that we're teaching our students in our existing courses. So we have a platform that we use that it takes an industry stakeholder about 20 minutes to go through and say, yes, a student needs this skill. Yes, a student needs that skill. And then they tell us, in some cases, that's no longer a skill that's necessary in this industry. So it's important for us to maintain that collaboration and contact with industry to make sure that we are providing our students with the skills that will help them to be successful. I mentioned earlier that there are career and technical student organization competitions. Typically, those competitions have about 2 judges each, and we like the judges to come from industry. One of the competitions, Mystery Basket, a student, and this is really a wonderful activity in the state of Texas, supported greatly by the Texas Beef Council, and they provide the students with a bushel basket full of ingredients, and the student has to develop a menu item with that basket. So who better to judge that than our partners that are in the industry and really understand the industry. That's just one example. I'll give you some additionals in just a moment. And then the educator externships. Many of our culinary arts teachers are former chefs and restaurant staff members, but not all of them are. We have some teachers who have never worked in a restaurant that are teaching our culinary arts courses, and how beneficial is it for those individuals to spend a week in the environment and really be able to understand how the instruction they're providing to the students really fits with the occupation. So those externships are also really important. So I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into each of these opportunities so that you know who to contact and what the next step would be if you're interested in any of these opportunities. So we talked about internship learning opportunities. I did mention that they can be paid or unpaid. We want our students to get the value of the experience. The experiences can be virtual or in person. So there are some things that students could do for some of our restaurants right now that could be completely virtual activities. So I have a couple of examples listed in the blue box if you'll take a look there. You could allow students to watch food preparation that's being done in a restaurant. You could put a telephone video that, and it could become part of a Zoom classroom instruction for the student. You can allow students to attend stand-up or daily meetings virtually or in person, and that's a really great learning opportunity for our students. And then you can allow students to job shadow in person or virtually, either one as well. You know, you just have to kind of step outside of the box and look at creative ways to help build the future of your employment base and the future of your industry. The next slide talks a little bit more about being a guest speaker. Any staff member in your company could serve as a guest speaker. Some people are more cut out for public speaking than others, so you know that staff member that you might have that would be really engaging and that would excite the students about careers and opportunities in your workplace. Again, these speaking engagements can be virtual or in person. So some typical examples or some things that you might have a guest speaker talk about. Their career progression. It sounds like it would be something that students would not be interested in, but they love to hear how the general manager of the restaurant became the general manager. And there's so much value in the students hearing about how that person may have started in a lower level hourly position and worked hard and worked their way up to that general manager position. So those are excellent opportunities for students to have to gain an understanding of what that career progression looks like. A day in the life of what happens in my day. Industry hot topics. COVID would absolutely be one right now. Controlling expenses, valued industry skills, and then of course customer service. And I looked down and saw that it was 4:15, but I'm going to go about 5 more minutes to finish, if that's okay, Ty.
Actually, I don't know. I think it's timed, but what
Okay.
I do have here, going back to what you were just speaking about, I did want to mention that from the Q&A at the bottom with the chat is some of the students have questions because we've experienced it called in when they're graduating over at the Hilton and such forth. How is it possible to develop the skills if the employer is requiring experience? So that's one of the largest things too that they're being faced with. And if you can answer that before we hop off and let us know, or myself or Yvonne, if this information will be made available for those who've tuned in with you today.
Absolutely. So the way that a student can get those skills is by these job shadowing opportunities that we're talking about. In the industry, sometimes you don't want to have an internship that's unpaid, but many times that's one of the best ways to get that experience that you need and that you can list on your resume. So I would say, yes, make sure that you're utilizing any kind of experience that you have, whether it's paid or unpaid. And then I will send a PDF of the last few slides of the presentation that talk about a little bit more on who to contact and what each of these opportunities consist of. Here are all of the competitive activities that the students can participate in. Great. And that we look for industry stakeholders or industry partners to be judges. And then here's a little bit of information on the educator externships and why they're so valuable for our educators. Again, this is an unpaid externship. Typically, there are grants that a school district will solicit in order to pay the educators a stipend for participating. And we're talking about a 1-week externship, an opportunity for a teacher to spend some time in the industry. I am going to leave this slide up in case you do have any questions. You can take a screenshot or copy and paste my email address if you'd like to contact me for additional information. And I will work on making sure that Yvonne has a PDF of the presentation in case there are any questions on those last few slides that I didn't get an opportunity to spend a lot of time on.
Yes, we would like to thank you so much, Miss Debbie. It has been a pleasure. I enjoyed it. For all of you who have tuned in, don't forget, all week we have some amazing education sessions going on Big Ben. Join us again. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Yvonne.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you.
Thank you, darling.